So these are some of my thoughts and reactions to the Negotiator Conference 2021. In particular, some of the comments I wrote down made by people during panel debates. In no particular order, it's just the order I wrote them down. So David Cox, who's I think he's the president of Arla, or the chief executive of Arla. I think it's that one. I just wrote down, at one point he said, 10 years, no progress. In the prop tech debate, Robert Peston, who started the whole talk off by saying, prop tech is an awful word. But he went on to say, what is it an estate agent does that can't be done by artificial intelligence, that must be done by humans? And what struck me was there wasn't a good answer to that. And Robert Peston was there. I mean, the way he was talking is almost like he had the consumer hat on. Like, I'm here on behalf of consumers to find out, because he's not an estate agent. He knows nothing about the industry, right? In fact, in the same debate, towards the end of the prop tech panel debate, he said, we've talked about everything from the agent's point of view. Now, what's happening for the consumer? And there was nothing. There just wasn't an answer to that. Then skip forward to a later debate about the future of the industry. And it was the one that had John Cook, who's the CEO of eProp Services that owns Fine & Country and the Guild, etc. It also had Gareth Samples, who's the MD of the Property Franchise Group. And it had Nathan Emerson, who's the CEO of Property Mark. And a couple of others. Michael Bruce was there as well. John Cook. One of his answers to the questions was, again, to Robert Peston, I can't remember what the question was, but he said, a lot has changed, but nothing has changed. Gareth Samples said, embracing technology is hard because there is no integration. There's just, I'm not saying agree or disagree. That was his feeling as the owner, as the man running the Property Franchise Group. Nathan Emerson referred to the industry as an exciting, bubbling mess. And I can't remember the exact context of that comment, but again, I wrote it down because it might be exciting for some people, but I think bubbling mess is a better description of the property industry.
Yeah.
And he went on to talk about how the average fee is now below 1%, and that justifying higher fees is essential, otherwise agents are going to have a problem. And the last comment I wrote down was John Cook, the eProp Services MD, saying, as a sector, estate agents, so his exact words were, we've always been behind the curve as a sector. Which is true. Which is why the key takeaways from the day for me were, number one, all of the debates that I heard were carbon copies of the debates from 10 years ago and even from 20 years ago. Estate agents must embrace technology. Yada, yada, yada. But there's no integration, and that's that. The only thing that's new is that 20 years ago, integration wasn't needed. There weren't that many tech products, but now there are so many that it is. So that's an additional problem that wasn't there 20 years ago that's there now. Can you be a viable estate agency business at 0.9% fees? Well, depending on what area of the market you are, and if you run your business as efficiently as possible with an intelligent use of technology, then yes, possibly. But for ordinary agents who have not adopted technology ever properly in the way that other sectors have, no, you're going to struggle. Like, so that company Maitland's that went out of business, been in business since 1994. It's a Southwest agency. Closed its doors last week, saying fees are too low, costs are too high, can't maintain it. Well, I don't know anything about that agency, so I can't make any comments on them. But what I do know is I see a lot of agents running their businesses incredibly inefficiently from an overhead point of view, where without reducing headcount, they could reduce their overheads with better use of technology, by improving their processes and making the cost of progressing deals lower. But a lot of them don't do it. So the overwhelming conclusion for me was that it was like going to that conference was like going back in time 10 years. Same faces, same message, it was a fun day. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing the people. It was great to connect and catch up with people. I had a couple of very interesting conversations, but my takeaway feeling was nothing has changed. I go back to my very first David Koch from Arla, 10 years, no progress. And John Cook, a lot has changed, but nothing has changed. Well, I would disagree with a lot has changed. There's some new stuff, but nothing has changed. If we talk about whether or not the delivery of the service to the consumer has improved, no, it hasn't. And so I then went around asking people the question, if you could wave a magic wand and change anything at all about the property industry to make it better for movers and agents, what would it be? The agents I asked all said, in one way or another, the sales progression process is what needs to be fixed. Whether it was compulsory upfront seller information, whether it was better communications between mortgages and conveyancers and surveyors and that kind of stuff, they were saying that is the thing that, if it was fixed, would improve things for movers and agents. And I don't dispute that. But of course, agents aren't in a position to make that change. The non-agents I asked had different answers. Put the customer first. And actually, that, if you had to sort of pinpoint what is, as a whole, what is the industry's biggest mistake or flaw or failure, is that it's putting itself first at the expense of consumers. Proof being that in normal markets, you've got a less than 50% chance of selling a house with the first agent, and you're unlikely to get the price that makes you happy. And very few agents do get your price that makes you happy. But whose job is it to change the industry? Well, it's no one's job to change the industry. Property Mark exists to make things better for Property Mark members. And Property Mark is driving the regulation of property agents, this new Parliament Act, which may well bring some improvements, but they're going to be incremental improvements. It's not going to solve the consumer's biggest problem, which is everything takes forever, the conveyancing process is rubbish, and no one ever keeps me in the loop. Regulating property agents won't solve that problem, and that's the consumer's biggest problem. And if regulating property agents does eliminate some of the rogue agents, well, that's good. That's an improvement. That'll help some people, but it won't make a big difference. I don't think the consumer will notice that. Might it improve the reputation marginally? Yes, possibly. But that's an increment. This doesn't need incremental improvements. It needs wholesale, radical change and improvement. Now, why is that relevant to us, to BestAgent? Well, the whole approach I've taken to BestAgent, including not having investors, not having partners, turning down offers of investment, as painful as that is, turning down very generous offers of collaboration with certain brands, is because, first of all, no one has a chance of changing the industry unless it's a neutral approach, totally neutral. Nothing will change the industry unless it actually delivers a better experience for the stakeholders, movers and agents. Doesn't matter what you say in your marketing, doesn't matter how good you think it sounds. Either you deliver something new and significantly better, or you're irrelevant. Okay, and that's the task I've set BestAgent, is deliver. It doesn't matter how many people we're helping, but whenever we do have someone come through BestAgent, they must get a better experience. Otherwise, we're irrelevant. They being both the mover and the agent. And so far that is happening. So far, people are getting higher prices in less time by using an agent they weren't expecting to use. I got more money than I expected in less time than I expected using an agent I wasn't expecting to use. Now that's change for everybody. That's mover significantly better experience. I mean, what did Chris say? It doesn't get better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Agents getting instructions they wouldn't otherwise get.
Mm-hmm.
Win for them too.
Yeah.
Delivered by BestAgent's neutral approach. So this is why we've built BestAgent to work in the way it works, because anything that has corporate affiliations or investors, or it's always going to be putting profit first.
Mm-hmm.
And my approach is we make a difference first, and if we do make a difference, and only if we make a difference, then we'll make a profit.
Mm-hmm.
Now that means accepting failure as a likely option.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so be it. It's deliver or die.
Mm-hmm.
So what I need to do is I want to do a video review of that awards from a bird's eye view.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who's been going to those awards and conferences for decades,
Mm-hmm.
who knows a lot of the agents, who knows a lot of the problems, I've been on those panel debates, I've been on all sides, and I've had agent clients who've been experiencing some of these problems and some of these benefits of technology. I'm well positioned to make an impartial observation
Mm-hmm.
of the state of the industry. Now, it doesn't mean I'm qualified to do it. I'm not saying I'm qualified to do it, but I am well positioned to do it because I am neutral.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what agents do. I understand the value of what agents do. I understand the importance of what agents do. I think what agents do is more important than they realise, which is
Mm-hmm.
why people are charging low fees when they shouldn't be. Because if they understood the value and importance of what they did, they would charge more money, because
Yeah.
it costs more money to deliver what the movers really want. And any agent out there who hears me saying this and thinks, well, I'm doing all right. Well, are you? You're making a living, fine, and good for you, because it's hard to do that in agency. But are your customers all going, wow, that was better than I experienced?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they are, good for you. You're probably, one of your market leaders in terms of deals completed in your area,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in the minority. And congratulations, and those agents do exist, and we need to help the movers find those agents more easily. But if you are in the large majority of agents, I'm sorry, your instructed to sold ratio is mediocre at best.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's less than 50%, you cannot consider yourself as being a successful deliverer of
Mm-hmm.
what your customers are expecting. You're not going to be getting the prices that those properties could be getting,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not going to be turning around at the time they could be turned around. There's no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a difficult job, especially when you're not getting decent fees.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the income to cover the overheads that it takes to actually deliver higher prices in shorter times. It takes human work on the phones, holding deals together, negotiating deals, progressing them through to completion. That doesn't happen on its own. And if you leave it happen on its own, it falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes. So to wrap up my summary of this, it really was like watching an action replay of a conference from 10 years ago. The only difference being there was a blockchain conversation, but blockchain is not relevant to the mass estate agency market yet. Yes, there are developers who might be using it, and finance and mortgage companies might be using it.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, blockchain will be relevant in the future.
Yeah.
But there's nothing blockchain offers to a small independent agent today that's going to make a difference to either the agency or its customers.
Mm-hmm.
It's currently a red herring.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I think. Those are my immediate feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? Does anything pop in your mind to go? I mean, what am I trying to say? What's the point of me saying this? What I'm saying is the industry has been flogging a dead horse for the 20-something years that I've been in it, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Portals didn't exist 20 years ago, and now they pretty much have won the fight to be getting the most money out of the data.
Mm-hmm.
They've cornered the market, and they're rinsing that data and squeezing it out, and they're siphoning the value of that data away from agents and into their own shareholders' pockets.
Yeah.
Good for them, except they're not helping anyone except themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They are actually, in my view, the barrier to improvement in the market. And it's the same with the big agents. Most of my comments always are accepting the agents that do deliver way above average results.
Yeah.
Higher than expected prices, shorter than expected time, with great communication. Okay?
Yeah.
There are agents like that exist. There aren't enough of them. They aren't easy enough to find. They don't stand out in their marketing that they are that much better. But they are there. I'm going to finish by saying this. Even at 2% selling fees, it's amongst the lowest selling fees in the world.
What are other examples of selling fees?
Most European countries are 3, 4, 5%. America is 6%.
Wow.
And
we're looking at under 1% at the moment on average.
And I'm sorry, that is a reflection of the industry's lack of ability to communicate the value of what it does. And that's because so many agents don't understand the value of what they do. Now, that's not an insult. I'm saying you are more important than you think you are if you're an agent. You are undercharging for what you do. What you do is difficult, complicated, risky, incredibly hard work.
Yeah.
What are you doing charging 0.9%?
Yeah.
Honestly, look at the overheads that you've got. What are you doing charging 0.9%?
Did anyone...
It just, to me, that just reeks of a lack of professionalism. That's the wrong way to describe it. It's a lack of perception of the value they provide. I need to do a video on that.
Can I just... Did anybody actually answer? Is it Robert... What's the name?
Peston.
Did anybody actually then answer his question?
Which one?
Stated at the beginning. What's anybody doing for the consumers?
No.
So...
There was no answer. I mean, I listened and waited. Words came out of people's mouths. But no one gave an answer to that question. Because this is my point about estate agents. They are so focused on their business, which is normal and natural,
yeah, of course,
that they are not focused on wholesale change and improvement for the consumer.
Yeah.
Nobody is focused on that.
It's just, I mean, listening to you talk about what happened at the conference, if you have a hotel or conference room full of all the people who are responsible for providing the service or the red tape and things like that, the rules for a estate agency, they're all under one roof. That question was asked by a journalist on behalf of consumers. That you had all the people in the room that could answer that. Not only can answer it, but could have the solutions as well. So if that main question hasn't been answered, I mean, I'm sat here now as in a seller's shoes, and it just makes you think, well, if those guys aren't going to do it that you saw that day, who is going to do it?
Yeah.
Oh.